Hello everybody and welcome to Cause and Effect, a show about VTES. This is the second part of the first episode of the second season. It's getting harder and harder to say that shit. Whatever. We have missed the first part of this episode. I suggest that you go back and watch it. Anyhow, now we're going to continue with the second part. So today we are talking about True Brujahs, or Trujahs as they're commonly called. And before we dive into that subject, I would like to mention that no, I have not used a tanning salon. It's my camera that's a little bit off, and I'm wearing this shirt. Continue. Yes. So, about True Brujahs. The second part we are going to focus on a little bit more of the clan cards and some of the vampires that we didn't get a chance to talk about in the first part. So, we're going to jump right into it with talking a little bit about Shalmat, which we said earlier that the clan has no head honcho, but in my opinion, he's the head honcho of the clan. So, Isak, Shalmat, what do you think?
He's a very young vampire, or at least as the logic of the VTES community is that usually takes kind of a long time for an archetype to establish itself, to be standard, so to speak. And he's only been around since early 2010, so it's 2 years this February. But he's very strong on paper. Getting one extra untap each turn is strong. It's 10 cap, he can get Enkel Kog, he has Superior Clan. He's a clean cut when it comes to vampires. The part with moving cards to the research area, I think, is corner case at best. But
yeah,
but he's very obvious to play with Enkel Kog since he gets the untap for free and it's a 10 cap. I don't know what should be done with him.
Okay,
I've seen rush decks with him.
Yeah,
that's very neat. But yeah, I'm sorry. Adam, do you got anything?
I have a deck list on my computer with Sheet of Fates deck with him, which is like equipping deck. I think his action, like his special to untap every turn, makes him like good or a lot better than a lot of other vampires with equipments and retainers and stuff. So get plus bleed things and then bleed with Sheet of Fates is that deck.
Okay, what does Sheet of Fates do?
Like it's a bleed action, which makes it unblockable by minions that does not have Temporis, and you untap afterwards.
But you can't play discipline cards during the bleed action.
Right, yeah. In this deck you go Anak with him and you play a Monka Wrench. Obviously you have Ankar Citadel, and Summon History for Ankar Citadel, and both the Sheet Fates and Monka Wrench is 1 blood each. So that's that deck. It's like, it doesn't bleed very fast, I don't think, since it's a 10 cap and it's only 1 vampire, and it doesn't have any defense, so it will probably fail horribly, but yeah, that's that.
Okay. So yeah, in my opinion, and as Isak said, it's the rush deck. It's like the furthest we've gotten this far with this vampire. And then you play Hourglass of the Mind, right?
Pocket out of time, you mean?
Yeah,
pocket out of time. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, what's pocket out of time?
It's an action modifier that makes you be able to restart combat after each combat for 1 blood. So it's like 1 card for any amount of psychs that you like as an action modifier, not reactively, of course. So it's like a really strong combat card. Also, it's stealth. That's just another bonus, nothing more.
Yeah, exactly. It's a neat card. It is.
Yeah. It really makes the rush part a lot better. So it's like what we talked about in part 1, where you need to be defensive in some way. especially with a 10 cap, which is really expensive. You'll probably die if you're not defensive. So rushing is the only option with the disciplines that Shalmat has, since he does not have Auspex or Dominate. And,
Yeah. So basically what you do is you rush, play some potence cards, and then you start a combat anew.
Yeah. Also, like a neat trick they can do with Shalmat is if you rush with Pocket Out of Time, you can play Majesty to untap, and then just Pocket Out of Time for a new combat, and then you just do that combat, and then you're untapped for after the combat, and you can rush once more another minion. So we can make a multi-rush deck with Majesty and Pocket Out of Time. It's like extremely expensive in blood. That could be worked around with Taste of VTES.
Yeah, that's something to think about. Is there anything else you could do with like Pocket Out of Time than with Shalmat? Can you like build another just rush deck with it?
Yeah. Of course you can. The leading question. They have potence, but it's nice to have a psych, so you don't have to rely on grapple. But since they have potence, they don't have immortal grapple, so I don't know. And obviously I'm kind of bad at the combat angle, especially rushing with high caps. And most of the time when rushing with high caps, it ends up failing miserably. And I do think, unfortunately, that's the case with Shalmath. It feels not as strong. Yeah. But it could be doable. I've never tried it, so...
A deck like this works only with Temporis and Potence, and there are 2 7 caps, which both have Potence and Temporis. So, in a way, you're paying 3 pool for the option of using Enkel Cog. I think that's like the biggest advantage with Shalmat. His untap and Enkel Cog. But if you just want to rush, I think Krasimir or Ibn Khaldun are better options, since they're cheaper.
Okay, so I don't think we need to talk anymore about Shalmat. I mean, he has untap. That's about it. I think we basically have him down. Casimir, on the other hand, maybe we should talk about him since you mentioned him, Nadan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a nice one. I really enjoy playing, and I've done that for a long time actually, playing him with Iron Forcel, since they both share Temporis and they share Dominate. And
actually, I was going to make a joke about Iron Forces sharing a discipline with somebody, but that's boring. Go on.
He doesn't share it with Smudge or Conrad.
Funny.
Thank you. I tried my very best.
Yeah. You nailed it. Okay. So, and Iron being older than Krasimir, for me at least, is the key point to making that Dominate Temporis deck work, because then you can play Govern the Unaligned on Krasimir, bring out as the second vampire. And then you have Spontaneous Power to give Iron superior Temporis, and you have Inferno Pact to give a third Tremere Anti-Tribute Temporis. So you could have 3 superior Temporis guys with Dominate in play. And from there you just bleed.
Yeah, you just tap bleed the shit out of everyone.
Yeah, because you have the Tangle Octopus Hand, you have the Recurrent Contemplation, maybe you have got Misdirection or Anarch Troublemakers. Well, speaking of Recurrent Contemplation, that card is broken.
Pretty much.
It actually is.
Action modifier tap card. That's like...
Yeah, and Block Denial.
It's like you do one action and it's a mind numb as well. It's like insane.
Yeah. So this works extremely well with bleeding, I think. Sure, it's fine if you're rushing too, I think. You can tap some, or the Block Denial, Jake, Washington or whatnot, but I think it's stronger with a bleed deck, because then you can tap an untapped designated bouncer. For instance, Ingrid Rosso or something like that, an Auspex winner.
And you don't? like the drawback is that it's a younger vampire only.
Yeah, and only once each turn, of course.
And even if they stay untapped with like a cap 8, and you won't be able to play it with Iron, they have to stay untapped with a cap 8 vampire. That's like a really big thing. So normally you'll get use out of it. Even if you can't play it, you forced your prey to stay untapped with a really expensive vampire. So that's...
Yeah, them wasting an action.
Yeah, and then of course you just tap it with a misdirection or something.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of... It's the same logic as Seduction. It's very easy to cycle. So, since it's an action modifier, just random action, play recurrent contemplation on random low cap. You can even choose a vampire you control yourself.
Yeah. But how is this deck like? Is it any better than just dominate presence?
Probably not. Most stuff isn't better than dominate presence, but for one thing, like having a weird mechanic like Tangle Out Riposte's Hand, maybe people are not that uncomfortable with it now as they used to be, but when I started playing with Tangle Out Riposte's Hand, people didn't know what was going on. Like,
this mechanic,
can you do that?
This mechanic, the Tangle Atropos thing, is incredibly hard to wrap your head around. It took me, playing against you, like 3 or 4 games to figure out, like, no, you can't actually use weights. It's a non-card against Tangle Atropos. That's like a really hard thing to understand. It changes, like, it puts the game on its head. So
yeah, this changes everything.
It does.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So, but anyways, that mechanic is very, very strong. Since it's wake denial, to some extent, you block denial if someone wake, that's obvious. And it's also bounce denial. As long as your Grand Prey has an untapped vampire or wake on his hand, because you only need to attempt to block to be allowed to play Tangle Out Riposte's Hand. So it doesn't matter how much stealth you have. They have to attempt, they don't have to succeed.
Which is crazy. I mean, bounce denial is so strong. I mean, it's just
maybe I should
horrible.
elaborate on this. It is a bounce denial because you get to untap the vampire and you don't trigger the NRA, so you're allowed to do the same action again, even a bleed again. So you can bleed the govern, play Antagonist, and put some time, and restart the same action with the same vampire. Maybe I just clarify that. So in that way, it's a bounce denial. And the same with Vaticination. Obviously, if you're only playing Kresimir as the True Brujah, you can't abuse Vaticination in the same way as you can in Peter Botto's True Power deck, but still, it's a very strong card.
But when you use Tangle Out Riposte's Hand, you replace that card, and then I mean, how does it? Then you can take up the action card that you played, and then you discard a card from your hand, right?
Yes. So you also get some card cycling going.
Yeah, and that's really strong as well.
Yeah.
You can remove Silas Valley or like excess V lanes from your hand. It's good.
Yeah. Yeah, anything you do. And then you just bleed with the Governor Gun.
Yes, exactly.
So it has some like strong points when comparing it to Presence Dominate, but I mean it's obviously the crypt that's like
and when you sit here and you say it, you bring up Iron, you give him spontaneous power, then you bring up another Tremere Tribute, and you give that one Infernal Pact, and then you have 3 Temporis. In practice, it's not that simple.
Yeah.
Really?
No.
Yes. Usually, most of the time, you get 2 guys with Temporis, and the third one is kind of late. Usually, you don't get the third Temporis minion until maybe the 3-way game or something like that.
And touching on like the Presence Dominate Bleed deck, I'll go on to Aben Kaldun, if you're all done with Kresimir.
Yeah. Go on.
It's actually, I should give Randall Rudstam credit for this deck idea. It kind of caught my attention. You just play like a Presence Dominate, but with less Dominate cards, regular Vignes deck with Ibn Khaldun. and it feels like it could be something there because of how strong that destination is, and Ibn Khaldun has Fortitude, so he can play a few freak dives, and presence speed is really good. So I don't know, not much to hop on really, but you can, like, with great effect, combine Temporis vampires with presence as well, like this.
Yeah. And it's also both Ibn and Krasimir are 7 caps, and a 7 cap to get access to Temporis and that destination is very strong, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
I basically don't have much to say about this. I have never heard of this deck.
No,
but it's in theory it sounds great. Like playing a power bleed or tap bleed deck with Vaccination. That's very similar to like the Krasimir idea. It's only you play presence instead of dominate.
Yeah, you don't have to play with Infernal Pact or Spontaneous Power to get disciplines as well. That's quite neat.
Yeah.
Like, oh well, of course you won't have Temporis as many minions, so that's a weakness as well. But it feels like they're comparable.
Yeah, of course.
I'd like to mention the Master Face action True Brujah, Cynosis.
Yes, Cynosis. Yes, we'll give a shout out to him.
Shout out to Cynosis. He's a Master Face action vampire in a weird way. He doesn't get the usual an extra Master Face action like Cybele or Answer or something like that. It's when you play a Master at a turn, you're allowed to pay a pool to get an additional Master Face action in your next Master Face. So if you play a lot of washes, which is a trifle, and when you play a wash, you pay a pool, you get additional Master Face action in your next Master Face. So if you play a wash, you end up with 2 Master Faces. You can't get any trifle effects, obviously, because you played a wash, but you have the 2 Master Face actions. And he's an 8 cap, and he got Obfuscate. Obfuscate
when you say, I will just clarify, when you say 2 Master Face actions, you get to play like one at someone else's turn and then one at your own turn.
No.
You get 2 during your
turn. You play the wash.
Yeah.
And wash gives you a Master Face action your next turn. And his card text states if you paid a pool when you played the Master after turn, i.e. the wash, then you get an additional Master Face action. So the wash gives 1 and his Cynosis gives 1. So that ends up you getting 2 Master Face actions during your next Master Face.
Okay. And so you get to play one on a turn as well. Yeah, because it's a trifle. I get it.
Yeah, so you get 2 Master Face actions during your next Master Face, but you can't get the trifle effect. So if you play a villain, you don't get a trifle Master Face. So that is a drawback compared to Anson, for instance. But it's kind of neat, because then you can play, and you do want to play a wash every single turn. And you can pay the 1 pool, you get the additional Master Face action, you can play Asher Tablet Liquidation Shenanigans, or a heavy tap module with misdirections and pentexes or such things. You can get a decent Master Face module going, and you get the wash, so you can deny other Master Face decks their Master Face without yourself losing. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Adam, you have anything?
Yeah, he can like this deck, the Master Face action tap lead deck. If you want to play it tap leady. You can combine him with Brewers, Presence, Potence, since Tangle Atropos Outfear effect on Potence is actually really strong. It can be played without Temporis in a competitive deck, I think. I haven't seen it or tried it, but...
what does it do at Potence?
It's basically as the Temporis effect. You don't get the action card back, and you don't get the stealth, so it's obviously better as Temporis, but you still get to untap, and you can do the same action again.
Yeah.
So I think Cynosis and Presence Potence vampires, you can make an interesting tap lead deck with a lot of tangles.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah, and then you can play some modifiers. Yeah,
Yeah,
that seems good actually.
I like that.
But can you combine him with any other Masterface vampires to make something out of that?
He shares presence with Anson, and he shares presence, potence, and obfuscate with Huitzilopochtli.
Which incidentally means blue hummingbird on the left. Go on.
What?
And Huitzilopochtli got the additional master face action for an additional pool, but then you end up being both smart and stupid at the same time.
Yeah,
because then you have to pay infernal cost, plus 1 pool for Huitzilopochtli special, plus 1 pool for Cyanosis special. That's 3 pool a turn. You probably can't keep up to paying that much pool each turn, but you get to feel smart at least.
Yeah, too smart. Maybe.
It's an interesting comparison with Cyanosis and Cybel's Masterface actions. So she is infernal, and you only get the Masterface action if she's untapped. It's more or less the same cost for that Masterface action, or Masterface action vampire.
So
it's 1 pool a turn. You can work
so
around
it. Might be, it might be totally doable then.
Possibly. It might be worse in every way as well. I don't know.
The obvious drawback being that you have to play a lot of washes, and you might get a bad card flow of washes when you play, because you want to play 1 wash each turn.
Yeah. To
get that additional Masterface action. Otherwise, if you don't play the wash, you don't get the additional Masterface action. Of course, you get it if you play a DI or a sudden, but since you're limited to only 1 Master Auto turn card per turn, you do want to play the wash instead of the sudden or DI, I think.
I would also remind on both Potence and Temporis works around this a bit, though. You can use it to more reliably draw washes.
Okay, I don't think we have we even discussed Hourglass of the Mind.
No, maybe not. We should. It's a really good card.
Take it up. Yeah.
It's an action to cycle cards, basically.
The superior Temporis version is more or less useless. But it is. It's a too big investment, both action-wise, but also blood-wise. It's a lot better to play it on either inferior Potence or inferior Temporis.
And also the alternative. If you play it on superior, you won't play it on inferior. And inferior is it's an immediate yield of 4 cards. Or you can delay it and increase the cost by 2 blood to gain 1 card. Even though it's permanent, it doesn't weigh out the fact that it's useless. It's inferior Temporis or inferior Potence. That's
additionally, burning 2 blood to gain 1 hand size feels incredibly weak, in my opinion. Especially since playing Temporis also is kind of blood heavy. So,
if you're playing the Summon History.
Summon History, Tangle Repertoire's Hand, Quicksilver Contemplation, Colossus Gift Superior, Sheet of Fates, Recurrent Contemplation Superior. There are a lot of blood costs involved.
So, but anyway, this is a card that you could use to get around if people start not playing their Masterface action, so you can't play your washes in this imaginative deck we are building up.
Yeah, but you could...
Castle of Air.
Yes, but I also think this is very good in any True Brujah or Temporis deck that you play, because most of them tend to be either toolboxy or stacked with some dead cards, or crappy core cards, or corner case cards, or too much action modifiers, or too few action modifiers, etc. So you get to on Potence you get to discard, and on Temporis you get to decide your own future. The biggest advantage with Temporis, in my opinion, is not that you get to restack the top 4 cards, because most of the time you want to discard the 4 cards you drew, or at least 4 of them, to get an even better hand. But the biggest advantage being the free untap in inferior Temporis, in my opinion.
I think this card is one of the most free cards in the game, for cost. partly because of the untap, and you don't lose any cards. That's both an advantage and a drawback, but it actually means that your deck size won't be diminished by 4 cards when you play it, and it's an action, it's at 1 stealth, so if they don't block that, or if they block that, they could have blocked any action you do on 1 stealth. It's kind of like free to include in the deck, even if there's no such thing as a free card, because card slots are expensive as well, but they tend to be quite acty, so you won't draw into it as a replacement on a reaction card, and it's just incredibly sweet to draw and play. The biggest problem would be to have 2 of them, and you can't play 2 of them because that's illegal.
Yeah, with the same vampire. Another advantage with this card is it works well with the summon history. If you want to play summon history, you can only search your library or ash heap. So if you have, like, say, the 1 copy of Ankara Citadel Turkey on your hand, and you have a summon history, you can do Hourglass of the Mind, put Ankara Citadel Turkey in your library, and then play the summon history. And then you get to reshuffle your library. I don't know if you want to do that or not, but anyways, you could go and fetch Ankara Citadel Turkey if it happens to be on your hand.
A little bit overcourse. I don't know if that's the English word for it.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know.
Haven't mentioned Colossus Gift.
No?
No.
I don't know if we should, but I think it's a nice card.
I mean, we have some time.
Yeah. It's another way to multi-act with them. I think it could be useful for the ones without Fortitude. Like, if you have Fortitude, you probably don't need more multi-acts. But for the ones without Fortitude, this could be a worthy addition to the deck. For Superior, Inferior is nice as well. And Obfuscate is not the strongest, but it could be good.
So basically, it's an untap, or what is it?
Superior, you can burn 1 blood to untap each minion phase. Or your minion phase.
Starting the next turn.
Yeah, so it's similar to Helicopter or Rutoshan or something like that.
Yeah, but it's a lesser cost.
Yeah.
Lesser one-time cost, anyway.
Yeah. The Inferior is nice if you play a presence-based, and you have the multi-act, and you have move 2 blood to your uncontrolled region with Colossus Gift, and you can do that with Enchant Kindred as well. So that might be a bloat/crypt acceleration option for the True Brujah. That could be nice. And the Obfuscate, I've seen it used in Obfuscate Weenies a lot of time. I don't know if that's good or not. It's not for this episode, but I've used it sometimes when I play with Iron Forestall, since he got Obfuscate. And you can use that to try to fetch another Tremere onto Tribute, or find a Krasimir or something like that.
Yeah. And it's nice also that it's actually Obfuscate, since the main of Knight, a card that most Temporis decks play with, has inferior or outferior Obfuscate as well. For stealth. So it's a nice effect, and you can play it with the Obfuscate vampires as well.
Yeah. Cool. We have also Tabris Assembly. Maybe we should mention that. Isak, you said earlier off camera that you thought it was a good card.
Yeah, it was a lot better than I thought. At first, I was like, why should I put this in my deck? It's like a hunting ground. And I have to state that hunting grounds, or at least in my opinion, they're very, very bad. Very bad. But this is a very nice card. Getting an additional hand size and a mandatory hunting ground, or so to speak, hunting ground. You can stack it with other hunting grounds if you play them. But anyways, you gain a blood to True Brujah, and that is controlled True Brujah, so you do it even if you're in torpor. And you get the hand size, which is nice. And
there's also you get the hand size, and I think this is what tips the card over, comparing it to a hunting ground, is that you get 1 hand size immediately. It's a master card that you get immediate gain from, and I think that's a big thing. The extra blood is nice, of course, but you won't get that until the next turn, and there's anything could happen until then. You need immediate yield for most cards in the deck.
Yeah. I mean, it's not bad that it's burn option as well, so you can get rid of it.
Yeah, or if you draw it in your starting hand and desperately need crypt acceleration or something like that, it's probably better to ditch it than to save it until you put the True Brujah into play. The drawback is usually not that big a problem, because most decks don't benefit from burning this as a referendum. So if they do, okay, you have to ditch a card, but it's fine. It's not that big a problem. And if they don't, you still have the card in play. So that could trick people into wasting actions.
Basically, I mean, when looking at the card, I mean, it's an okay card, but it's basically a question if you have the master slots for it.
Yeah.
It should be an include if you have the master slots, because it's only good. There's nothing like bad about it. Costs nothing, gains you stuff.
Since it's a unique master that requires True Brujah, it's very unlikely that you contest it.
Yeah.
And if you do, you're screwed, because scarce.
Yeah, of course. It's always a problem when you're playing a scarce clan. If someone else puts up the same, then you're screwed.
Yes, very.
Yeah, then I mean, like, the last things I have in my papers is under the subject of odd ideas. We have Amulet of Temporal Perception, and I will leave this one up to you, Adam. You have some thoughts about this?
So yeah, when you're like sitting there for yourself or with anyone and you're talking about weird deck ideas, I think most of them, like in the past half a year, most of them have been fueled by Amulet of Temporal Perception, Freak Drive, Summon History, and Causeampersand Turkey. So that's like my standard start of any toolboxy weird one-trick pony deck, or so yeah, I don't know if it's actually going to be used ever, but this card means that you can get Ankara Citadel Turkey on any vampire, and Ankara Citadel Turkey makes a lot of cards that are previously unplayable playable. So maybe you can break a deck idea by including Amulet of Temporal Perception and Summon History and Ankara Citadel Turkey. Maybe it's too cumbersome. I don't know. We put it under all ideas for a reason.
Yeah, but there's a lot of options. Speaking of like the Iron Forceful deck, you can get like a 4th minion with that once each turn can burn a blood for inferior Temporis. But anyways, you can go the 4th vampire with Temporis without ever having to pay the scarce cost. Mm-hmm. So that's not as weird or as corner case, but playable. Might be usable.
Maybe. I don't know.
So, before we wrap this one up, as I always ask you, now do you have any last thoughts about this clan? Is it still cool, Adam?
About this what? This
clan, is it still cool?
Yeah. I think something that's quite interesting, like analyzing our analysis, is that we've been focusing so much on different cards, and also talking about including this Amulet of Temporal Perception and Infernal Pact and Spontaneous Power. So it seems that the clan itself is not important. It's Temporis that makes the clan.
Yeah. I think that's very true.
Yeah.
There's actually one. There's a Gangrel or something like that. That's another non-True Brujah that has Temporis.
Yeah, bring it up.
Maybe shouldn't.
I don't know. I think it's Squid.
Yeah, GW something. I think.
There we have him. Cap 10 vampire who doesn't have Auspex or Dominate.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Seems useful.
But I think that's very true that what Adam said about Temporis being the focus.
Yeah.
Of the clan. Obviously, the clan cards and the other disciplines like the presence and potence is not as important. The most I don't know, how to say this, but the archetype that's has succeeded the most with Temporis and or True Brujah does not use its clan disciplines, basically. It had 2 mind numbs, and that's it. Other than that, it was Temporis, Fortitude, and Auspice.
Yeah.
So I think that says a lot about the 3 clan disciplines, that they are difficult at best to combine.
Yeah. So they are weak but strong.
Temporis is very strong. The clan maybe not as strong.
Yeah.
If you only look at the clan disciplines.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that kind of wraps this up. Anyway, so this has been the first episode of the second season of Cause and Effect, a show about VTES. I hope you guys liked it, and I hope the sound quality is a little better. I bought some new gear, and I think Isaac has done as well. Anyway, so that's it for this time. Thanks everyone for watching, and remember, if you have any thoughts, comments or ideas, you can post on our Facebook page or send an email to the address below, which is causeampersandeffect@gmail.com. There you can also of course send in your Count Your Main decks. We have still going on the Count Your Main deck challenge, and if you January 5th is the last day we accept any contributions, so keep sending in those decks, and the winner will get a thumbs up in the least. So after the show we will post a thread on the Veken forum where you can continue the discussion. January 1st, I'm sorry, I said January 5th, it's January 1st, the 1st. No,
15th.
15th. Okay,
This
I
Sunday?
said wrong. And
This
Sunday.
about that.
Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well. Anyway, the episode is done for this time. So say goodbye, guys.
Goodbye.